Aw, animals.
SeaWorld's last baby orca whale born at Texas Park. A pregnant killer whale at SeaWorld San Antonio has just given birth, and as the park welcomes its new addition, it officially says goodbye to its widely criticized captive breeding program. Following the release of the 2013 documentary Blackfish, which revealed the plight of SeaWorld's orcapods, the company has been lambasted for its abysmal standards of animal welfare. Defiant, SeaWorld initially resisted, but could not withstand the backlash as its stock price plummeted. Forced to make profound changes to its philosophy and practices, in March 2016 the marine park announced it would phase out its killer whale shows at all U.S. locations by 2019. Not only that, but the company agreed to immediately halt its breeding program. The matriarch of the pod, Takara, herself born into a life of captivity at SeaWorld San Diego in 1991, was already pregnant with her 5th calf at the time of the announcement. A killer whale's gestation period lasting about 17 months, this calf's birth on April 19th marked SeaWorld's final opportunity to make a big splash in ticket sales from promoting a cute little baby whale. Now that no more orcas will be born or brought into the parks, SeaWorld ensures it will care for the remaining animals it currently houses for decades to come. Animal activists argue if SeaWorld truly wants to care for its whales, they should finally release them to seaside sanctuaries, giving the animals a chance to live as close to a natural life as they can at this point. Whether SeaWorld eventually decides to wave the final white flag is uncertain, but at least the birth of this baby orca closes a whale of a dark chapter in the animal slavery books of America.
Say no to safe spaces on YouTube. Support TomoNews at patreon.com/TomoNews.
Want to know more about SeaWorld's troublesome past? Let's rewind the tape.
San Diego SeaWorld decides to end killer whale shows by the end of next year. They're majestic, darn cute, and they put on quite a show. But many have come to believe that orca or killer whale performances are not in the best interest of either the whales or their human trainers. On Monday, SeaWorld's chief executive Joel Manby said San Diego's theatrical killer whale experience will end in late 2016. The company says it will replace the famous Shamu show with a new orca experience focused on the natural environment of the whales, which is a bit confusing as we thought their natural environment was like in the open ocean. What sparked the decision? Well, this 2013 documentary Blackfish might have had a lot more to do with SeaWorld's decision than they'd care to admit. Focusing on the 12,000-pound bull orca Tilikum, seen in this picture, the film showed his capture in 1983 off the coast of Iceland, his possible harassment by fellow captive orcas, and documented the circumstances that led to Tilikum's involvement in the death of 3 humans. When released, SeaWorld was highly displeased with the film, calling it inaccurate, misleading, and distorted. But Blackfish seems to have changed a lot of minds about keeping orcas in captivity. SeaWorld will not, however, be going Free Willy anytime soon, and will stop the shows only at its San Diego park, which saw visitor numbers drop 17% last year. Killer whale theatrical performances will continue at SeaWorld parks in San Antonio and Orlando. What do you think? Is it time to end making whales jump around for our amusement? Or is this issue not quite so black and white? Is SeaWorld genuinely changing? Or is this just a PC PR move to placate animal huggers in California?
SeaWorld announces the end of captive breeding for its orcas. Whale-sized news, animal lovers! Defamed marine theme park, SeaWorld, has waved a huge white flag regarding the nature of its operations. Captive breeding of its orca whales ends today. In an op-ed published in the LA Times, SeaWorld CEO Joel Manby announced the landmark move, which acts to keep the theme park afloat amid rocky waves for the company over the past few years. SeaWorld has been drowning in a sea of backlash following the 2013 release of the critically acclaimed documentary Blackfish, which details the horrendous conditions and psychological traumas the orca whales in SeaWorld's tanks have been subjected to for decades. The company initially scoffed at the notion that it was ever in the wrong, launching campaigns refuting the film's claims in attempts to protect its brand. In 2014, it even recruited crocodile hunter Steve Irwin's daughter, Bindi Irwin, who was 15 at the time, to be the new face of SeaWorld, hoping to win over lesser-informed animal lovers. But with relentless protests mounting, attendance dwindling, and its stock prices plummeting year over year, the company began making critical adjustments to project a transformation of its culture. Last year, SeaWorld announced it would be phasing out its orca whale performances at its San Diego park by the end of 2016, replacing them with a simulated natural habitat to offer visitors a better understanding of how the whales might behave in the wild. The company then got approval from the California Coastal Commission for a $100 million expansion to build these habitats, but only on condition that SeaWorld halt its captive breeding program permanently. After initially retaliating by suing the Coastal Commission, this new announcement paves the way for SeaWorld to begin transitioning from an entertainment business to one of education, research, and conservation. A 5-year, $50 million partnership with the Humane Society of the United States has also just been announced, so it appears SeaWorld is finally ready to swim in the right direction. As for the 29 remaining orcas at SeaWorld's 4 parks, the company says they will not be released, claiming the killer whales would not survive in the wild very long, having lived in captivity for most, if not their entire lives. Animal activists continue to fight for the freedom of the animals, saying seaside sanctuaries are better suited environments for the whales than tanks in a theme park. While many continue to question SeaWorld's motivations, as long as it delivers on its new promises, then we can all look forward to a whale of a good time for the children and orcas of tomorrow. Lolita the killer whale remains in America's smallest orca tank. Since being captured in 1970, Lolita the orca whale has resided at the Miami Seaquarium in Florida. She's been forced to perform tricks for live shows since being stolen from her pod at age 4. Not only that, but her tank happens to be the smallest orca tank in the US. Lolita is roughly 21 feet long and weighs 7,000 pounds. For a whale her size, regulations state her tank should be at least 48 feet wide, with a straight line of travel across the middle. Her actual tank is just 35 feet wide by 80 feet across, with a concrete station in the center. Living in such tight quarters for 46 years has also led to psychological trauma, as Lolita can often be seen circling the tank and exhibiting other abnormal repetitive behaviors. The cramped tank also exposes Lolita to the sun's UV radiation, which has led to terrible eyesight stemming from a pterygium. At 50 years old, Lolita is the oldest orca in captivity, and her mental and physical ailments are racking up. Animal welfare organization PETA has been working tirelessly to have the Miami Seaquarium held responsible for the whale's suffering due to the poor treatment she's given. But whether she'll ever be released back into her pod in the wild or a seaside sanctuary to retire remains a big question mark.
Say no to safe spaces on YouTube. Support TomoNews at patreon.com/TomoNews.
The sad life and dark times of Tilikum the orca whale. On January 6th, the world's most famous whale passed away. SeaWorld announced that Tilikum the orca whale has finally died due to complications from a bacterial lung infection he'd been ailing from. Tilikum's health had been in decline for a few months, but the suffering he endured as a captive orca whale lasted for more than 3 decades. In 1983, then 2-year-old Tilikum was captured off the coast of Iceland, ripped from his family and taken to a marine zoo. A year later, Tilikum was then transferred to Sealand of the Pacific, a former marine park in Canada's British Columbia. Forced to learn tricks and perform for audiences regularly, it didn't take long for Tilikum to become aggressive toward humans. In 1991, 20-year-old part-time trainer Kelty Byrne was working with Tilikum and 2 other whales when she slipped into the pool. As she struggled to get out of the tank, the whales reportedly prevented her from doing so. Tilikum supposedly carried the young girl's dead body around on his back for the next 2 hours before staff were able to retrieve her. After Sealand of the Pacific closed down the next year, Tilikum was then sold to SeaWorld Orlando for $1 million. There too, the 1,200+ pound whale was kept in a small tank built to hold only 1/10,000th of the water an orca would normally traverse over a day in the wild. Experts say these conditions can lead to psychosis for the whales, and it wasn't long before Tilikum struck again. In 1999, a 27-year-old drifter named Daniel Dukes had somehow snuck into the park and dove into a breeding tank to go skinny dipping with the whale. The next morning, in a familiar sight, Dukes' body was found draped across Tilikum's back. The death was reported as a likely drowning, but that wouldn't explain all the injuries Dukes suffered.
His body was covered in abrasions, and his genitals had reportedly been bitten off. Tilikum's murderous streak culminated in 2010, when SeaWorld trainer Dawn Brancheau was pulled down into the pool during a live performance, and held down until she drowned. Her body was later recovered with her left arm and part of her scalp ripped off. Brancheau's death was the focus of the 2013 acclaimed documentary Blackfish, which exposed SeaWorld's treatment of its orca whales and nearly sunk the company following an extreme public backlash. In response to the film, SeaWorld has since halted its captive breeding program and announced it would be phasing out its theatrical orca shows. In a statement, SeaWorld mourned the loss of Tilikum and noted the world-class care provided to him, and that he lived a long and enriching life while at SeaWorld. Rest in peace, Tilly. Hopefully, you're swimming through an endless ocean heaven with plenty of fish to eat. No more tricks for you, big guy.